Hey everybody, it's Andrea here. Today I am dry canning or raw packing, not dry canning, that's probably not the right word. Raw packing beans, which means I'm not soaking the beans nor am I cooking them before I pack them. I just washed them. These are black beans that I've had, they're a little old. I've probably had them a couple of years. We don't eat a lot of black beans, but the way things are getting now, more expensive, I thought, well, I might as well can them up. That'll help them get really soft when they cook, and it'll put food in our pantry for if we need it, which they're gonna be good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with black beans. We just don't eat a lot of them. We eat more pintos. I'm doing pintos today also. So what I do is I clean my jars. I do not go through a sanitation process with them because we're pressure cooking. When you pressure cook, it puts so much extended pressure and heat in a jar. This is my opinion, my personal opinion, and you don't have to follow it. Do what you do. Do whatever you need to do to feel safe for your family. But for me, and I've never had a problem in pressure canning, I don't sterilize the jars. They're clean, they're dry. I put the food in, clean the rims, seal them up, pressure can them. So these are just clean, dry jars. I wash and sort the beans. And these are pint-sized jars, and I do 1/3 cup of dry beans. And then I use the McCormick's seasoning. Ignore the fish in the sink over here. That's what we're having for dinner tonight. Sorry. I just caught a glance of that and it looks gross. I use the McCormick taco season, and I don't even measure. I'm sorry if you're a measuring type person. I just sprinkle till it feels right. One package will do like 6 jars. I just sprinkle a little bit in the bottom of each packet, a little bit of the package in each jar, and I don't really measure. I just measure the beans because I have a problem having the bean to broth ratio just right. Sometimes I have jars with a little bit of beans and a whole lot of broth, and sometimes my jars are like all beans and no broth. And I use 1/3 cup every time. That is a problem I have. If you have any tips on how to get more consistent with that, leave a comment. I'm all about getting it right. When I can beans, they always turn out perfect. It doesn't matter if there's no broth in all beans or all broth in little beans. The beans cook perfectly in the jars. And this isn't something that's in my canning book. In the book that came with my Presto canner, you cook the beans first, or you soak them for 24 or 48 hours, whatever. These are unsoaked, uncooked black beans. I'm doing pintos also today, and they cook perfect every single time. It's like having your own can of beans from the store, except you know exactly what's being put in there, and they're in glass, not in aluminum, which is a big plus for us. It's just awesome. We love it. My husband is a huge eater of beans. So what I do, I have a little bit of taco season in each bottom. I didn't feel like y'all needed to watch me do all that. It's just sprinkled in the bottom. 1/3 cup of dry beans, washed and sorted, obviously. My friend Dana from church grew these little jalapenos in her garden, and they gave me a little surplus of peppers here, which I was super excited about because now they're going in the jars. Some of the jars already have cut up peppers. You can see them in there. I put a little bit of beef broth and then the rest water, and leave an inch of head space. And I'm going to do all of that and then bring you back when I put them in the canner. So stick around. Alright, so I'm back. I'm about to do the pintos. I have the black beans all jarred up and sitting in the canner waiting. I have my peppers cut up in the jar, and I'm going to just show you how I sprinkle the powder. And I don't know, it's probably a couple of tablespoons. Because obviously this package is for a pound of meat. So if you put the whole package in each jar, that's going to be really strong. I have a little bit left in the package, so I'm just gonna spread it around in these jars because I only have room in the canner for 4 more jars. I don't want to waste this season. Okay, so some of it will be stronger. That's okay. So I'm going to put the beans in there and the little bit of broth and some water, leaving an inch of headspace, and I'll bring you back for that. We'll have a look in the canner here. This is a Presto canner, and I don't know what size it is, but it holds, the bottom layer is all in quarts. Pints. I'm gonna put some in the middle here, and then I double stack it. When you pressure can, your jars do not have to be in the bottom. They will pressure can perfectly stacked. Just make sure that your pot doesn't rock and your stove is stable, so nothing tips over, because it needs to be standing in the upright position. I have an inch of water in the bottom. You don't want your jars submerged. There has to be room for the steam to build up, which is what causes the pressure to build up, is the steam. So if your pot's full of water, you're not going to get it up to pressure. I live in Texas, and I can at 11 pounds, and they will can for 75 minutes. So an hour and 15 minutes it'll take these to cook. And once they're done, we will have all these jars of cooked, ready to eat beans ready to go. I love that. It's so convenient. I'm really getting into canning meat. I've done taco meat and just plain ground meat. And then I like to do beef stew with vegetables. And I've also done just some beef, chunks of beef by themselves. We had a cow butchered last year, so we had some beef and the freezer was full, and I just worry about the electricity going out, we losing stuff. So I canned up a whole bunch of meat and things, and now we have it if we need it, and it makes a perfect Sunday afternoon meal. We get home from church and I don't have to cook, which makes me super happy, because then there's more time for naps. So I'm going to fill these with beans and the broth and the water. And if you're wondering what's going on here, we live in a camper, and I have 1 foot of cabinet space, countertop space here. So I'm having to hold the camera, all the stuff just laying out. That's just how we live. We're working on refurbishing an old house, and the price of material has skyrocketed. So we're kind of at a standstill. We're living in a camper going on year 4. That's okay. We live a great life, and we are so blessed. So stick around. Alright, so I have my 1/3 of a cup of pintos, which have been washed thoroughly, and I put them in there. And then I will put a little bit of broth. If I had more broth, and I have in the past actually used all broth and no water, but I just had 1 little box of beef broth, and I don't want to use my homemade bone broth because I like to drink that in the wintertime. And then this is just some water. We'll just add it. I go up to the neck of the jar, just where the rings start. That's kind of my guideline. A little bit more. So that's what I do. And then I take sorry, I dropped something. I take a napkin with some white vinegar on it, and I clean the rim like that, and put the lid on. And you tighten it pretty good. I mean, you don't have to crank down on it or anything. So there it is, ready to go in the canner. Alright, so I have all my cans or jars done. They are stacked in my canner. They are double stacked, which is perfectly acceptable. Some people put a wire rack in between the jars. I don't have that, so I don't do that. I'm bringing the heat up slowly. I'm about to put the lid on. I bring the heat up slowly, and that is supposed to help. I don't know if you've ever been canning, and the liquid from your jar comes out and gets into the water. If you bring your pressure up slowly, your temperature up slowly, it's supposed to help with that. I think I canned carrots the last time I did a canning, and I did it slower, and of course carrots don't really have a colored juice that they're gonna put off, so I'm not sure if it worked or not. This time I'll be able to tell when I clean the pot out afterwards if it helped or not. So that's a good tip. If it works, I'm happy about that. I don't like when my liquid comes out, because then I wonder about what might have went in. I'm not worried about bacteria or germs or anything like that. I definitely don't live in fear of bacteria, germs, botulism. I just choose not to live in fear. We trust God to take care of us. We pray over our food before we eat it, and I try to be as clean and careful as I can. I just don't live in fear about it. So I'm about to bring the pressure up to these, put the lid on, and bring it to 11 pounds for 75 minutes, and that is for my local area. You'll have to look up to see where you're at and what kind of pressure you need to do, and make sure you do it for the right amount of time. Thank you for watching. I think I'll give you a glimpse of the jars when they're finished, so I'll bring you back for that. Alrighty, so I have my beans in the pot. The pressure is mounting. I do go up to 11, and I hold it at 11 pounds for 75 minutes, which is an hour and 15 minutes if you can't add that up. I'm not making fun of you. I'm terrible at math myself. This is just what, if you're new to pressure canning, this is probably not the video to watch, because I didn't give a lot of instruction on the technical kind of stuff. But if you're not new to canning, you've seen all of this and you know what it is, and keep watching. We got about 5 minutes or less before we start the 75-minute countdown, and then we're going to have lots and lots of cans of beans. Alright, so the beans came out of the canner. I got 13 pints of pintos and black beans. You can see they're still bubbling in there. If y'all could smell, you would know how good this smells. You might can hear the sound of fish frying in the background. It's the fish you saw earlier in the sink. It smells delicious too. It just all smells good in here. So what I told you about the temperature, that I raised it up slowly. You can see in the water's perfectly clear, so I didn't have that. It didn't come out. The broth did not escape out of the jars. So that was a good tip, and I'll pass that on. Raise your heat up slowly to get the pressure up. I used to just flip it all the way up and let it go full blast from the beginning, and that's obviously where I messed up. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I know it wasn't super educational, but we can all learn something new every day. Y'all have a good day.